You again.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Hanging in there.
Great. Okay. You've heard me tell the story a number of times, the origin story of this idea. Now I want to hear your version of where the idea came from for Friends, Romans, Countrymen.
Sure.
Which you wrote and I'm directing.
That's right. That's right. Well, during one of our periodic lunches, we were talking about possible things that would be interesting starting points for a Shakespeare-adjacent play. And I'd had this idea looking at Julius Caesar about how the play opens with a big parade, and of course there's the big assassination, and then there's a big battle. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of focus on the guys who have to clean up all that stuff.
Right.
The guys who have to sweep up after the parade, mop up after the blood, get the bodies off the battlefield. And that's where it all sort of started. Then I kind of broadened my focus to kind of look at what are the aspects of Julius Caesar, the play, that might be interesting for an audience to see in conjunction with the legitimate production of the play. And one of the things I focused on was the soothsayer. And everybody knows, there are 3 lines from Julius Caesar. Everybody knows: friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, et tu, Brute, and beware the Ides of March. Right. And focusing on the soothsayer was interesting to me because that was the warning that was given to Caesar. Not beware your friends, not beware the Senate, none of that. It's just beware this date. It's kind of an odd thing if you're concerned about somebody's health and welfare. The one thing you can avoid a place, you can even avoid a specific time, avoid people, but you cannot avoid a day. So I kind of reverse engineered my thinking about the play from what kind of person would make that warning. And then I thought about how Shakespeare has the soothsayer appear again in the play. Again, drawing from the Plutarch source, which happened on that Ides of March when the soothsayer encountered Caesar again. And then I started thinking about what's his story through all of this chance meeting with Caesar.
Where does he go when he's not?
Yeah, and how is it that he intersects? Yeah. Everybody else, makes sense. Brutus and Cassius, all these people who served with Caesar or were fighting against Caesar, his family, his friends. But who's this stranger who kind of just plops in the middle of everything and gets the ball rolling as far as what's going to happen in the play? And then one of the other things I noticed, and I was doing this deep dive into the text of Julius Caesar, is noticing that Octavius, it always struck me that, Shakespeare doesn't give any clues to his audience if they don't already know it, that Octavius is going to become Augustus Caesar. If you don't know that, you just think who's this, schmuck who comes in and calls himself Caesar. And I thought that there's a story there about this kid becoming the heir to Julius Caesar. And then I thought it was striking that the last words of the play that Octavius speaks after the Battle of Philippi are happy day. The last 2 words of the play are happy day. So then I started thinking, what kind of an experience did this character have that he would have? Because everything sort of broke Octavius's way, in the course of Julius Caesar. But we're so focused on Brutus and Cassius and Antony, we don't really see how he's lining things up to eventually become the first emperor of Rome and serve as emperor for 40 years, which is unprecedented. He dies at the age of 76. It's insane. So there was all of that kind of big stew of Roman history and things that Shakespeare chose not to use from Plutarch that I thought would be like the whole thing about from Plutarch. The night before the assassination, Caesar has dinner at his lieutenant Lepidus's house. Mm-hmm. And the topic comes up of what's the best way to die, and Caesar says, suddenly and unexpectedly is the best way for a soldier to die. And I thought, less than 12 hours before he's going to be stabbed to death, he's saying that. I thought that was just such a great... So it was a combination of bringing in historical sources and then kind of asking yourself what's happening in that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead kind of way. What's happening off stage when we're seeing stuff on stage?
So that's a great... You've somewhat answered my question here, but because you and I have been working on this for a couple of years now, 2 years now, and you were given sort of a challenge for this to sit in 2 different worlds. There is the world of the real Julius Caesar, the historical record, and then there is Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and Shakespeare was writing a play with dramatic intent, and the 2 don't quite line up. So where have you chosen to, you're working within the parameters of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar,
Right.
But you're also trying to bring in more of the historical record.
Yeah, because there's so much in the main sources that Shakespeare is using are Plutarch and Suetonius, and there are just so many great little granular details and the characterizations of things that happen that are fantastic dramatically. The big one, obviously, is the way I characterize Antony in my play aligns more closely with historically the kind of guy Antony was. Cicero complaining about Antony presiding over something in the Senate being so hungover that he vomited into his toga. And this is the kind of guy Antony was. As we all know, the worst thing that could have happened to Antony was to go to Egypt and have somebody say, you should be a god and just indulge yourself all the time. This was the guy who was the king of indulgence. So I wanted to bring a little bit more of that historical Antony into the play without subverting too much.
Right.
Because, as you know, like in the play there, I interpolate text from Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
And frequently I'll start the scene a little earlier than Shakespeare starts it, or I'll end it a little later.
Right.
And I wanted to make it, I'm certainly not saying, and you'll never be able to notice the seams. I'm not saying that. But I wanted it to be of a piece.
Yeah.
That there wouldn't be a huge gear shift for actors or directors to have to kind of manage that.
It's probably important to say that this is a comedy that you wrote.
Yeah.
Where do you find the comedy? Where did you find the comedy?
Some of it is there's always a kind of I don't want to say disconnect, but again, going back to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, that is also a kind of comedy-ish about these guys and their perspective. I think that's the main idea, is the shift in perspective from these kind of lower level guys to the lofty, the main focus of Shakespeare is the head of the conspirators, these with great ideas about the Roman Republic and all that, and my guys are just trying to make a living.
Right.
Trying to get through the day.
Trying to stay alive.
Weather the civil wars, exactly, all that kind of stuff. It's also that, as a writer in general, I'm anti-genre,
Yes.
because I don't think life has a genre. We've all had an experience of something terrible happening and then something funny bursting out of that, or just the other way around.
Right.
And it's a tightrope. I'll admit to that, but it's also something that comes out of like what your expectations are about a story about Julius Caesar, and then sometimes it's subverting your expectations, or sometimes asking, but then what if? Like if you accept this, then can you accept that? So the play is trying to occupy both those zones at the same time. A comedy in terms of how these characters are dealing with all this stuff, but we're still dealing with this assassination.
Yeah.
And this war.
Yeah. I would love to just remind you about how we first met and how this all started.
All right, remind
And
me.
it was, I think it was in 2014 that CSF was thinking and talking about producing Wittenberg, your play. And in 2014, one of the actors that was in the company here, and I was thinking about it for 2015, one of the actors said, well, the playwright lives in Boulder. And I said, what? And he said, oh, yeah, he moved here. He moved to Boulder just a couple of years ago. He's a friend of mine.
Right.
And we've stayed friends ever since and going to lunch regularly. And I think it was shortly after the pandemic is when we started. You had this idea about two minor characters in Julius Caesar, and what sort of interesting story could we tell out of that? I think we kept having lunch and talking about it for about a year, until I eventually
dropped it on me.
Said, let's just do it, because otherwise we're never going to stop talking about it.
That's right.
So let's just do it, and do it in rep with a real production of Julius Caesar, just to see the fun of. And one of the things I love about this play is that it is set in ancient Rome.
Yeah.
It is in the time.
That's right.
The setting is the time of the story. And so our production of Julius Caesar will be very contemporary. Suits and ties, smartphones, a lot of that.
Sure.
But it's the same cast that is playing all the same characters.
That's right.
In Julius Caesar, and then playing the same characters in Friends, Romans, Countrymen in ancient Rome.
Right.
So I keep thinking about them They'll do Julius Caesar as a matinee, and then they'll come back and play their characters' ancestors from thousands of years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Which also leads to the one of the other most famous lines in Julius Caesar. How many times shall this our scene be acted over in states unknown and accents?
The greatest called shot in dramatic literature. Shakespeare saying they're going to be doing this play forever,
pointing to the upper deck from stepping up to home plate. Yeah, they're going to be doing my play forever, which we are.
Well, it's always timely, isn't it? You know,
it is. It's evergreen. Yeah. There's a lot of characters in Julius Caesar that you have fleshed out and given more to. Calpurnia is a much bigger role in Friends, Romans, Countrymen. Yeah. The soothsayer, obviously. Talk about Xenarchus a little bit.
Well, like this goes way back to, again, the original ground of this play when I was talking about these two guys. Yeah. And we talked about how one of them's Roman, so he's Republican. One of them is from Athens, so he's democracy, you know.
Sure.
And I was, toying with that, but ultimately I feel like Shakespeare has written the political play of Julius Caesar, and I would got to be much more interested in what's underneath that, the experience of the Roman citizen, and the experience of a Roman citizen who believes, especially when we're talking about the soothsayer, so devoutly in the religious system. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But Xenarchus is from Greece.
He's originally from Greece.
And he sounds like you.
Yes. Yeah. And that was something when and again, I wasn't planning on doing that when I started writing that scene. But then I thought, let's have it so that he's an outsider, not just in the fact that he's a new Greek refugee who's ended up in Rome, but let's have him speak differently. Let's have him have an outsider's perspective on the whole Roman enterprise.
Yes.
And that's what was valuable. And then it really...
Sometimes it reads to me, it's almost a contemporary, a little bit more contemporary perspective. So we're sitting on the stage where we're going to produce Friends, Romans, Countrymen, and the set, in reading the play, that's one of the things as the director that I want to try to pull out and bring to the play is the perspective of these characters are at the mercy of the gods, of their gods.
Right.
And their gods, without not trying to spoil anything, they actually are participants. They are characters in this play. So I'm trying to make them seem puny on stage. Mm-hmm. So the set, the scenery, the props, they're all a little bit oversized to try and give that perspective of their helplessness and puniness. That's one of the things that I take away from the play. Give me a sign. We're at your mercy.
That's right.
Help us understand what to do.
Right.
And they won't. They never do that direction from their gods. So that's really interesting and funny to me as well. All right, I think we have time for one more.
All right. Hit me.
Okay. What would be for you a solid win on opening night? And then I'll answer the same question.
Well, I mean, people laughing, people applauding when it's over, people feeling like really, it's the thing I love sometimes the most is having a talk back with an audience afterwards, and the kinds of things that the play makes them think about. Mm-hmm. It's such an extraordinary experience when you write like a play, in that. I think, like for instance, Wittenberg. There was a production in Australia. No way I can't get to Sydney to see that production, but it was out there going into people's heads, and you know what I mean, and making them think about Hamlet and think about just everything in ways that they weren't thinking before. And it's always fascinating to me to see what kind of questions audiences have or what kind of connections they make that weren't even in my head, you know. And so what I want to be successful, obviously successful for me when people love it and come back and see it again and tell their friends about it and all that kind of stuff. Right. But it's really that maybe they'll also come at Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's play, or even the history with a slightly different angle on it. And remembering that how you choose to tell the story is as important as what the story actually is. Or maybe the story doesn't exist without the perspective, you know?
Right.
So when you're doing something like Stopper with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, or something like this, you are really asking the audience to shift away from the way they've heard the story, again, for centuries now, And I would love it if that kind of sparked a new way of looking at things, for the curiosity or a way of looking at, as you know, one of the things when you said it was a sign, that this experience of writing this play has opened my third eye to signs and portents all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's a fun thing that I'd like an audience to take away from it, is start, interrogating those things. Am I meant to be doing this?
You've been seeing quotes from Virgil's Aeneid.
Yes.
All
my
over
God,
Boulder,
it's on the
all over
state
Colorado.
seal of Colorado. I got my voting guide, and oh my God, that's from the Aeneid. and it's stuff like that, but it's also, it changes how you go through life when you're allowing sort of circumstances to guide you. Sometimes
Rubicon Bakery.
That's right. For my birthday, it was
and-
cupcakes from the Rubicon Bakery.
You're texting each other all the time.
all the time,
The seal
watching
of Colorado's
Texas
picture.
A&M and their star player Virgil with the number 1 on the back of his thing. Come on, man, it's too much.
A solid win for me. I think we've already achieved it, but I'm still going to work hard on directing the play. But a solid win would be there is a surprise on every page of the script.
Yeah.
And that is great entertainment for me. And you've already loaded it up by challenging our and their expectations of what they think the story of Julius Caesar is about.
Right.
Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, as well as the real Julius Caesar, and these historical figures at this time, and the education that we're getting as well from your play in a very, very funny and entertaining way. I think I can't wait to get started with the cast. I'm at an advantage as well, is that Julius Caesar opens first, so I get to watch all of those rehearsals. And Shelley Gaza, who's directing Julius Caesar, we've had lots of little side conversations as well about, Easter eggs that we can drop into each other's show. And I get to watch her and how she stages certain scenes first before I inherit all of them, playing the same characters and then putting them into a very different story in a very different time period.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
I hope so.
Will be. It'll be great. Thanks, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was great.